Hello, dear. My name is Where Sleep Flow Studio. Wow, and I'm so glad you're here tonight. It's, say the time softly, e.g., just after 10 o'clock. And wherever you are listening from, maybe your room is dim and quiet, or maybe you're lying beneath a soft blanket, with only the sound of the night around you. This is your moment to slow down. You don't need to do anything now. Just listen, breathe, and let your mind drift. Tonight we'll travel through time together, to the forgotten corners of history, where old kingdoms once rose and faded like dreams. So settle in, close your eyes if you wish, and let the story begin. Tonight we drift backward through time, past the hum of cities, past the lights that never sleep, past the weight of our busy world. The air grows cooler, quieter. Somewhere beyond the horizon of memory, Europe lies different from how we know it now, divided not into nations, but into small realms, each ruled by a name nearly lost to history. The story begins in the north, in the soft gray mists of what is now England and southern Scotland, a place once called Northumbria. The Kingdom of Northumbria. Long before England became one kingdom, the island was a tapestry of smaller worlds. Northumbria was one of them, a land of wide rivers and dark forests, where the sea whispered against cold stone. The people spoke an early form of English, still rough with the edges of older tongues, the speech of Angles, Saxons, and ancient Britons. Northumbria rose in the 7th century, when two smaller kingdoms, Bernicia in the north and Deira in the south, joined under a single ruler. That ruler was King Ethelfrith, a name that once carried the weight of swords and storms. In those days, kingdoms were fragile things like flames in the wind. They burned bright for a generation, then vanished. Yet for a time, Northumbria glowed brighter than most. Its capital lay first at Bamberg, a rocky headland overlooking the North Sea. Imagine a wooden hall there, firelight flickering across carved beams, voices echoing against the storm outside. Warriors would gather to share ale and songs, while monks, newcomers from Ireland and Iona, whispered prayers in the corners. It was an age when faith was changing the shape of Europe. Christianity was spreading northward, carried by quiet travelers with worn sandals and strong hearts. One of them was misty, who founded the monastery of Lindisfarne on a small tidal island off the coast. Even now, when the tide retreats and the path re-emerges, it feels like walking back through time to a world of bells, candles, and salt wind. Northumbria's kings often ruled with both sword and scripture. King Oswald, who came after Ethelfrith, was said to have raised a cross before battle and prayed for victory. His legend still lingers like a soft echo through northern England. But kingdoms rise and kingdoms fade. By the 9th century, Northumbria's proud towers were shaken by the arrival of Vikings. Longboats slipping through fog, oars cutting like blades through the sea. York, once called Eoforwick, fell to them. The Norse renamed it Jorvik Air, and new voices filled the markets, a blend of Old English and Old Norse, the birth of a mixed tongue that would later become part of modern English itself. Northumbria, the shining kingdom of scholars and saints, slowly disappeared into that mix of cultures. Its monasteries burned, its kings vanished. Its name became geography, the north of the Humber, yet Something of its spirit survived in the way. English people still look to the sea, still find poetry in gray weather, still build quietly, stubbornly against the wind. So we let Northumbria rest. Its halls are quiet now. The sea has taken the edges of its stones. But in the hush of night, if you listen carefully, you might still hear the sound of distant bells across the water. The Kingdom of Burgundy. Let us drift south now through clouds, over green hills and forests, down into the heart of continental Europe. There, between what is now France and Switzerland, once stood the Kingdom of Burgundy. It is a name that flickers through maps of the Middle Ages like a ghost that refuses to stay gone. Burgundy was not one kingdom but many, born, broken and reborn across the centuries. The first Burgundians came from the north, a Germanic people who settled near the Rhone River in the 5th century. Their first capital was at Lyon, then at Geneva, and later Soissons. They were caught between two mighty neighbors, the crumbling Roman Empire and the rising power of the Franks. For a time, Burgundy flourished. Its rulers blended Roman law with Germanic custom. Its monasteries copied books in the soft candlelight of scriptoria. Its vineyards began to shape the land itself. But in the early 6th century, the Franks under King Clovis swept in like a storm, and Burgundy was conquered. Still, it did not truly die. The name endured, passed from mouth to mouth, reappearing in new forms: the Kingdom of Upper Burgundy, the Kingdom of Lower Burgundy, and later, the Duchy of Burgundy, one of the most powerful states of medieval Europe. The later Dukes of Burgundy, especially in the 14th and 15th centuries, ruled over lands that stretched from the heart of France to the edge of the Netherlands. Their courts were centers of art, fashion, and music so refined that even kings envied them. The most famous of these rulers was Philip the Good, who wore robes woven with gold thread and built libraries filled with illuminated manuscripts. But behind the splendor lay the same fragility that haunts all kingdoms. When Charles the Bold, the last great duke, fell in battle in 1477, his duchy was claimed by others, the French crown, the Habsburgs, and in time, history itself. Burgundy, the glittering dream of a realm between France and Germany, faded into maps and wines and legend, yet its legacy endures in the quiet romance of its name. Even now, the word Burgundy carries warmth and color, the deep red of wine, the soft glow of candlelight. So when you sip from a glass of Burgundy tonight, remember, you are tasting the ghost of a kingdom that once dreamed of being the heart of Europe. The Kingdom of Asturias. Now we drift westward across mountains dusted with snow, to the edge of the Iberian Peninsula, modern-day Spain. Here, long ago, when the Moors had conquered most of the land, a small Christian realm clung to life in the mountains. It was called Asturias, and it began almost like a whisper. After the fall of the Visigothic kingdom in 711, when Muslim forces crossed from North Africa and swept through Spain, a nobleman named Pelayo refused to yield. He retreated into the rugged peaks of the Picos de Europa, where forests hid secret valleys and rivers tumbled through stone. There, at the Battle of Covadonga, Pelayo and his followers won a small but symbolically powerful victory. From that moment, Asturias became a spark, the beginning of the long Reconquista. the centuries-long effort to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula. The kings of Asturias ruled from Oviedo, building churches of heavy stone, simple and strong. Their realm was small, but it grew, transforming over time into the Kingdom of Leon, then into Castile, and eventually into the foundations of modern Spain. Asturias, though humble, became the seed from which an empire would later rise. But in our story tonight, we do not chase empire. We linger in the quiet of the mountains, where mist drifts between the pines and old bells still ring for morning prayers. The kings are gone, the battles ended, but the echo remains, a whisper of courage held against impossible odds. As the night deepens, the stars seem to shift above you, each one a tiny spark of time, a memory of something that once was. You drift farther east now, across the rivers of Central Europe, toward a land of forests and castles, where mist settles softly over rolling hills. The Kingdom of Bohemia, in the heart of Europe, where the Vltava River curves like a silver thread through valleys and forests, lies a story both ancient and proud, the story of Ioanka Bohemia. Today it is part of the Czech Republic, but for 1,000 years Bohemia was a kingdom in its own right, full of beauty, art, and quiet resilience. The first kings of Bohemia were from the pre-Przemyslid dynasty, rulers who traced their line back to legend. They said their founder was a plowman named Przemysl, chosen by a wise woman named Dalibush, who stood upon a hill and foretold the glory of a city called Prague. The hill still exists, Vyšehrad, and from its height, you can look down upon the city that grew from her vision. In the early mornings, when fog drapes the red rooftops and the river glows beneath the rising sun, it feels as though her prophecy still breathes through the stones. By the 10th century, Bohemia was a powerful realm within the Holy Roman Empire. Its kings walked a delicate path and sometimes allies, sometimes rivals of emperors. The most famous among them was Charles the Frere, crowned in 1347. He was both King of Bohemia and Holy Roman Emperor, and under his rule, Prague became one of the jewels of Europe. He built the Charles Bridge, whose statues now stand like silent guardians over the slow, dark river, but power like light fades with the turning of time. Bohemia's glory dimmed through wars and shifting empires. The Hussite Wars in the 15th century tore at its heart. Later, under the Habsburgs, the kingdom lost its independence, its crown becoming little more than a symbol. Still, Bohemia never truly vanished. Its music, its glassmaking, its language, all survived like embers in the dark. And when you walk through Prague at night, under the soft orange glow of old lamps, you can almost hear the footsteps of kings across the cobblestones, fading gently into the mist. Outrid the Kingdom of Navarre. Let us drift westward once more, over the snow-capped Pyrenees that divide France and Spain. In those high passes, where eagles glide and wind sings through pine forests, there once stood a small but stubborn realm, the Kingdom of Navarre. Navarre began in the 9th century, carved from mountain valleys and shepherds' trails. Its people were Basques, proud, ancient, and fiercely independent. They spoke a language unlike any other in Europe, old even then with roots lost before Rome, the first known king, Inigo Arista ruled from Pamplona, a town that still lies cradled between green hills. His descendants defended their realm against both Moorish invaders from the south and Frankish lords from the north. It was a land of castles perched on cliffs, of pilgrims walking the Camino de Santiago, of songs sung in a language few beyond the valleys could understand. In the 13th century, Navarre fell under the influence of France through marriage and politics. Later it was partly absorbed into Spain, while a small northern portion remained French. By the 1600s, the independent kingdom had vanished, its crown merged with others. Yet in many ways Navarre endures. The Basque spirit still lives in the rhythm of their drums, in the bright red festivals of Pamplona, and in the quiet dignity of a people who have never forgotten who they are. Navarre's story reminds us that not all power lies in conquest. Sometimes it is the persistence of identity, the refusal to fade completely, that keeps a kingdom alive, even when its crown is gone. Ocean, the Duchy and Kingdom of Courland. Now we travel north to the chill edge of the Baltic Sea. There, in what is now Latvia, lay one of Europe's strangest forgotten realms in the Duchy of Courland, which once dared to dream of being a colonial power. Courland was born in the 16th century as part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Its people were Baltic, its rulers German nobles, its harbors filled with ships that smelled of pine and tar. Under Duke Jacob Kettler, Courland flourished. Though small, barely larger than a modern U.S. state, it built shipyards, traded with England and the Netherlands, and sent vessels across the ocean. Yes, across the ocean. In 1651, Courland founded a colony on the island of Tobago in the Caribbean. Palm trees swayed where northern banners flew. For a few years, the ships of Courland crossed the Atlantic, carrying goods, dreams, and perhaps a little wonder that such a tiny duchy could reach so far. But time and tides were not kind. Wars at home, rival empires abroad, all conspired to erase Courland's bold adventure. By the 18th century, the duchy was absorbed by Russia, and the memory of its faraway colony faded into legend. Still, the story feels magical. A cold, northern land that once dreamed of tropical shores. Sometimes even small kingdoms reach farther than anyone expects. And so the second night of our journey comes to rest. The kingdoms of Bohemia, Navarre, and Courland have drifted past, their towers reflected in the slow waters of time. Each one reminds us that power is fleeting, but stories endure. Castles may fall, crowns may rust, but the dreams of those who built them still whisper to us, centuries later, across the quiet of the night. Close your eyes, traveler. The next chapter will take us farther still, to forgotten lands of the north and east. Night deepens and the world grows still again. You feel the hush of old forests, the breath of cold rivers, the slow turning of centuries. Now the path leads north, to lands brushed by Baltic, winds and gray water where kingdoms flickered like candle flames along the edge of the sea. The Duchy of Pomerania. Far beyond the great rivers of Germany, the Baltic coast stretches in long silver lines of sand. This is Pomerania, a name born from the Slavic words pomors, by the sea. For more than 1,000 years, it was a place between worlds, not quite German, not quite Polish, not quite Scandinavian. The earliest rulers were the John Griffin dynasty, their crest marked by the image of that mythical beast. Half lion, half eagle, symbol of pride and vigilance. They ruled from quiet towns with red brick towers. Stettin, Augustin, Greifswald. Trade ships from the Hanseatic League carried amber, salt, and timber from their harbors. When the Reformation swept across Europe, Pomerania listened to the new sermons. Monks became ministers. Latin hymns turned to German songs. Then the long shadows of the 30 Years' War fell across the land. Armies trampled the grain and voices of prayer mixed with the echo of cannon. By the time peace returned, Pomerania had been divided, part Swedish, part Prussian, later wholly absorbed into rising states that forgot its older name. Today it is a coastline of quiet towns and dunes, gulls wheeling over water. Yet if you walk the shore at dawn, when mist curls low over the sea, you can almost sense the outline of a forgotten duchy, its people tending nets, its banners fluttering faintly in the salt wind. Arthur, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. Drifting eastward, the air grows colder, the forests deeper. You reach through Lithuania, a land of pines, lakes, and soft green valleys. Once it was not small at all, it was vast, powerful and wild, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. Stretching in its height from the Baltic almost to the Black Sea. In the 13th century, while Western Europe built cathedrals and kingdoms crowned by papal blessing, Lithuania remained pagan, its people worshipping fire, oak and water spirits beneath open sky. The Grand Dukes Mindaugas and Gediminas and later Vytautas the Great built their power not through crusade, but through alliances and marriage, forging a state of many tongues and faiths. Under Vytautas, Lithuania reached its peak, its riders crossing vast plains, its cities shining with mixed cultures, Ruthenians, Poles, Jews, Germans, Tatars, all living under one banner. When he looked west, he saw Poland, east, the growing shadow of Moscow. To survive, Lithuania joined with Poland in union, two crowns bound by a single thread. For a time it worked. Then slowly the thread frayed. Wars, partitions, and empires came and went. But in the Lithuanian woods the old songs never died. They were whispered in low voices, carried through centuries, until one day they rose again in freedom's tune. Now when snow drifts through Vilnius and bells toll from the old cathedral, the sound seems older than any empire, older even than faith. It is the echo of a grand duchy that once believed a forest could hold the soul of a nation. The despotate of Epirus. From the Baltic's chill we travel south, where the mountains of Greece fold into deep green and gray. Here among stony passes and hidden valleys, once stood the Kir despotate of Epirus in a fragment of the Byzantine Empire that refused to die. When Constantinople fell to the Fourth Crusade in 1204, the great empire shattered into pieces. One piece fled east to Nicaea, another to Trebizond, and a third settled here in Epirus, under the rule of Michael Komnenos Doukas. He called himself despot, a title of dignity, not tyranny, and vowed to keep alive the purple heritage of Byzantium. Epirus was a land of mountains and monasteries. Its people herded goats on steep slopes, built churches painted with golden icons, and watched the sea from fortress walls. For a moment in time, it almost reclaimed the glory of the empire. Its princes dreamed of retaking Constantinople, of restoring the Roman crown. But dreams are fragile things. Wars with neighbors, betrayal, and the slow rise of the Ottomans wore down the marble walls. By the 15th century, Epirus was conquered, its name fading into the geography of western Greece. Still, when you walk the narrow lanes of Ioannina, or stand before the ruins of Amarta, you can feel the echo of that defiance, the will of a small realm to carry the memory of a fallen empire just a little farther into the night. But now the kingdoms fade once more into quiet shadow. The Baltic wind, the Lithuanian forest, the Greek mountain, they all sigh the same refrain. Everything changes, but memory endures. As you rest, let these places drift through your mind like soft lights on distant shores. They remind us that every corner of Europe, every forgotten name on an old map, once held its own pulse of life, its own heartbeat beneath the stars. Sleep well, traveler of time. When you wake again, the road will lead west to the twilight realms of Moir, Galicia, Silesia, and the Isles of Man and Orkney, where the sea tells the final verses of Europe's forgotten song. But the night has deepened. Clouds move like slow ships across a dark sea of stars. Our journey nears its end. We have walked through forgotten realms, through the echo of bells, through forests and river mist. Now the path bends west toward the edge of the old world, where land meets ocean and memory fades into the sound of waves. But first in the Kingdom of Galicia, at Europe's far western corner, where Spain leans out toward the Atlantic, lies a Galicia. Here the air is heavy with salt and rain, and the hills wear cloaks of fog. Long ago, this was a kingdom, quiet, green, and faithful. Its people were Celts once, long before they were Spaniards. They built stone circles and carved spirals on cliffs facing the sea. When the Romans came, they left roads. When the Visigoths came, they left names. And when the Moors came, Galicia stood apart, a remote and rain-washed refuge. In the 9th century, a light appeared in the sky, or so the monks said, and beneath it they found a tomb said to hold the remains of St. James. From that moment, Santiago de Compostela became a holy city, and pilgrims began to walk toward it from every corner of Europe. Kings rose in Galicia, ruled gently, then faded. By the 12th century, the crown had merged with Leon and Castile. The kingdom became a memory, but the pilgrims never stopped coming. Even now they still walk, dusty boots on cobblestone, shells tied to their packs. They follow the same old roads through vineyards and forests until, at last, they stand before the cathedral's tall spires and hear the bells ring across the rain. Galicia's power is gone, but its peace remains. It is a kingdom that survives not in law or crown, but in footsteps, in the rhythm of the road, in the hush that falls when the sea appears at the world's end. The Duchy of Silesia. From the ocean's edge we drift inland again, over the slow rivers of Central Europe, over plains that turn gold with grain in summer. There lies Silesia, a land that has worn many faces and many flags. In the Middle Ages it was a duchy, born from the old Polish realm. Castles rose above the Oder River, towns grew with Gothic spires, and monasteries rang their bells through the valley air. The Dukes of Silesia were ambitious, but time moved faster than their dreams. Bohemia claimed them, later Austria, then Prussia, and later still Germany and Poland shared their lands. Each change left a layer, language upon language, story upon story. The Isles of Man and Orkney. Now the wind turns north again to the islands. The sea darkens. The stars appear closer. We come to the Isle of Man, lying midway between England and Ireland. A small island with its own soul, its own crown, its own stubborn peace. Long ago, it was the seat of the Kingdom of Man and the Isles, a realm of Vikings and Gaels who ruled the waves in wooden ships. Their kings bore names like Godred and Olaf, and their parliament, the Tynwald Hair, still meets in the open air, making it one of the oldest assemblies in the world. When you stand on the cliffs at Mauhold or Peel, the sea seems endless, the gulls eternal. It is easy to believe that the island remembers every voice that has passed its shores. Farther north still, beyond the rugged coasts of Scotland, lie the Orkney Islands, a cluster of green and stone where wind speaks louder than men. Once they were the earldom of Orkney, a Viking outpost that became for a time its own small kingdom. The earls built halls of timber, carved runes into rock, and raised the great Est Magnus Cathedral in Kirkwall, a monument of red sandstone glowing softly against the gray sky. Centuries passed. Norway ceded the islands to Scotland, and the crown of Orkney slipped quietly into history. But the people remained, and so did the light. That cool northern light that never quite fades even at midnight. First the last light, and now our journey reaches the shore of silence. From Northumbria's gray cliffs to the vineyards of Burgundy, from Lithuania's forests to Galicia's rain, we have walked through the vanished heart of Europe. What remains are not the crowns or borders, but the things that move more slowly, the toll of bells, the murmur of rivers, the way light lingers on old stone. If you close your eyes, you can imagine them all together. A map drawn not in ink, but in whispers. Each kingdom a small flame, each story a breath of warmth. In the great, cold passage of time, these places are gone, yet they are never truly lost. They live in the words we speak, in the roads we still walk, in the music, in the wine, in the quiet pride of old towns. History is not only what happened, it is what continues softly, unseen, inside us. So rest now. Let the kingdoms sleep beneath the soil, let the tides erase their borders, and let the stars rise over Europe's forgotten lands. You have traveled far enough for tonight. The fire has burned low, the wind has gentled, and the world at last is still. Sleep well, traveler of time. The forgotten kingdoms will keep their watch till morning.